I'd like to call the regular Board of Education meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kevin, will you please do the roll call?
Ms. Vanderbilt? Here. Mr. Case-Layel?
Here.
Ms. Flynn?
Excused.
Mr. Rakowski?
Here.
Ms. Stadler?
Excused.
Mr. Singh?
Here.
Mr. Wolf?
Here.
Ms. Hewer?
Excused.
Mr. White?
Present. Fire exits, Matt.
Exits are in the back of the LGI.
I need a motion to adjourn to executive session to review the employment history of particular individuals and to review collective bargaining with the Beacon Association of Office Personnel, and the board anticipates to return at 7:30 p.m.
So moved.
Anthony?
Second.
Mike? Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 6-0. Some items that were noted for corrections. Item 13.03, number 13, had a corrected date. 13.03H was removed. And 11.10, 11.11, and 11.12, they're pre-K agreements. The wording was corrected. The agreement had agency where it should have had district, and it had district where it should have had agency. Any other items that need to be corrected? And I just noticed Mike hasn't back it. Are there any student or school presentations? Any parent groups? I have 2 people that signed up for open to the public. Mr. Griffin.
I'm going to give my position to her. She'll go first. I'll hold on.
Good evening. My name is Kenya Gadsden. I'm just here on behalf of the Back to School Block Party that's going to happen on Saturday, August 18th, to let the community know that it's at the South Avenue Park from 12 to 4 p.m. And we're asking all parents, students, and community leaders to please support the event. If you need more information, please reach out to b.m.simmons28@gmail.com. Thank you.
Thank you again. Mr. Griffin.
For those who don't know me, my name is Wayne Griffin. I am a lifelong resident of the city of Beacon and graduate of the Beacon City School District. I am the program director for the Beacon Summer Hoops program, which has been a successful summer basketball program for the city and the surrounding communities for the past 23 years. The program has provided a safe, enjoyable basketball program for the youth ages 6 to 18. The program was created to teach basketball and sportsmanship while providing experiences through sports that help the youth later on in life. I am here as a member of the community to address the posting of the Beacon High School varsity basketball coach position that has been posted and installed. It appears possibly pulled off the table. It is and has been my concern and our concern that the district is not putting the students of this district first when it comes to the sport of basketball. It's my understanding that the teacher's contract with the district has a clause that allows the teachers, whether or not they are the most qualified candidate for the position of coach, to be awarded the position over a person who is not a teacher in the district, even though the credentials may far exceed the teachers. Sports can help students in many ways. It can provide opportunities for scholarships, for advanced educational opportunities. In some cases, sports can provide a living on a professional level. And it almost always provides life lessons on winning, losing, and how to come back from setbacks and adversity. But if the person in charge of the program doesn't understand these things, it is not likely that these benefits will be achieved. We are losing students from the school because of the basketball program. Parents are seeking opportunities outside the district at private schools because of the state of the basketball program at Beacon. We can cite a list of students that have gone on to be successful and obtain Division I scholarships from other schools outside of our own home. We are here tonight to say that we, as a community, want to see a change and can no longer sit back and allow the current process to continue without a challenge. It is very possible that in the next few years, we will have a youth from our community go pro in the NBA for basketball, but he couldn't play high school basketball in his hometown because we didn't put students first, and we paid teachers an additional stipend ahead of the benefits of the students. It's hard for us to accept it to be true that the school district couldn't address performance of a coach that they may have felt wasn't meeting the standard. And it is our hope and belief that if the teacher wasn't performing in the classroom, that the district would be able to remove them. I'm here, as I said, as a member of the community, a longtime member of the community, and I have that concern. A lot of the stuff that I just said to you comes from feedback that I get from the community and things that I've seen go back and forth as far as the coaching position. What I would like is to give you an opportunity to address some of those things now if you can, or if you have to do that on a personal level, that I would accept that as well. But we're at a point now where we got kids leaving schools and being successful other places, and they can't stay in their own home to play basketball.
20 seconds, Mr. Griffin. 20 seconds left.
Okay. So again, I would appreciate some type of response.
Thank you. Any other members? No one else signed up. Is there any other members that would like to address the board?
I'll just say briefly that winter coaches are not, see, I feel like I'm shouting in here. Winter coaches are not being appointed tonight. Last year, I think coaches for winter sports were appointed in September or October. We'll probably be following that timeline. If anybody wants to speak to me individually about some of these concerns, I'm more than happy to meet with folks if you want to email me or call my office, set up a time. But thank you for sharing your concern and doing it in a respectful way. I appreciate that. And I'm always open to talk to folks if you want to come talk to me too.
All right, thank you. Superintendent's report.
All right. I just want to take this opportunity to update the board and the public just on a few things that we are working on this summer, especially at the administrative level. First one, we have some students that we want to give shout outs to. Eni Akinwumi and Grace Sanker participated in the Dutchess County Summer Scholars Program a few weeks ago. This 2-week program focused on the Vietnam War 50 years later, and they had a nice ceremony. Cecilia Danso Rumley was able to attend that up at Duchess Bosse's, and we're really proud of those two students. Do you know Eni well? She's one of our student advisors to the board, and so we're really grateful for those two students who did that program. And again, this summer we had students from Rombout Middle School participate in the partnership we do with the City School District and the Beacon Institute for Rivers and Estuaries. This year, the summer program was ESI, Environmental Science Investigators, Beacon 2018 Dennings Point Invasion. So we want to thank our science teacher at Rombout, Jeanette Lynch, for doing this program, and Asher for facilitating the work on the side of the Beacon Institute. So thanks to all those students and teachers for keeping the work going over the summer. We know there's many more. Just one note for the board, we have scheduled summer August graduation. It's it's August 22nd at 10 in the morning. And we don't have an exact number yet, but we have a lot of students coming in working hard this summer at the high school for summer graduation. So tonight there's a few things later on the consent agenda that I just wanted to speak to. I'm proposing to the board that we do a slight realignment at the executive team level that we think will help deliver better service to the entire school district community. So we're making a change. Celia Dancer-Remley, who has been our assistant superintendent for instruction for the last 2 years, she will be getting a little bit of a title change that for instruction. It was encompassing this really wide range of stuff, and so we've narrowed that down a little bit to Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources and Accountability Systems. What is an accountability system, you might be asking? We have so many in the state of New York. So just really briefly, we have APPR, which is the Teacher Evaluation System. We have ESSA, which is the Every Student Succeeds Act, which is the federal and state accountability measures. We have principal and administrator supervision. We have all of our data systems, all of our reporting systems to the state, our disciplinary reporting systems. So all those accountability systems, pretty vast. Every school district has responsibilities in keeping track of all these, and Celia will be our point person on that, along with being our point person especially for the instructional side of human resources. On the other side, we're making a little bit bigger of a change. We're eliminating the position, the Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction. That position will be no longer, hopefully as of tonight. And instead, we created a new position, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Student Support. And Eric Wright, we're proposing to fill that position. Eric served as a principal in New York City Public Schools, then a principal here at Forestville Elementary. In the last couple of years, he's been doing the Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction. Moving forward, he's going to be at the Assistant Superintendent level. He'll still be doing that work at the curriculum level, working with groups of teachers, working with professional development, moving the curricular work of the district forward, but he also will be focused on the student support side. And so that student support side is going to have several different looks to it. One part of it will be DASA, the Dignity for All Students Act. He'll be the district-wide coordinator for DASA. Another part will be he'll be working with students and families through the disciplinary process as a support, and also someone to hear appeals or do investigations in that area. And then finally, he will be the person heading up a pretty big project this upcoming year in terms of revising our code of conduct for students. And so we're excited that Eric was willing to take that position on. Just a little note, he had a vacation scheduled for this week months ago, and so we were trying to time it, this appointment, that it wasn't when he was on vacation, but we want him to have his time off because he doesn't take very much. But we're excited moving forward about this. So we're going to start communicating about these changes internally to all of our internal employees tomorrow. We'll also put out an email to the community about these changes. And then when we get closer to the school year, we'll really get kind of nitty-gritty with everybody about everything that falls under their job title. But we're excited about this change. Another position that is on the agenda for tonight is the Director of Security. This was a new position that was developed in the budget process last year. And this position came from just a lot of conversations and a lot of work around school safety and security. So these are just some of our thoughts and continue to be our thoughts about this position moving forward. We really felt like last year, even though we feel our schools are safe and secure, I think any district wants them to be safer and more secure. And so we felt someone in the role of Director of Security would really help us focus on that preparation, planning, and training of all of our staff, emergency planning for all of our buildings, and working with our administrators to be prepared for emergencies that come up. And having one consistent person who provides that for the entire district, we felt was a good step in the right direction. So some benefits of this position will be that all schools will receive consistent training. School teams received consistent training from Alteris. And our next step after those school teams received that training last spring is for all people in the school building to then receive that training this fall. And we think this director of security, we believe this director of security will help make that training consistent amongst all 6 of our schools. Every school is required to have an emergency response plan, The district's required to have a district emergency response plan. And the director of security will be point on the planning process for that, working directly with me and building principles, and will really work with us to make sure that our planning is again consistent amongst our 6 schools. This position will be a liaison to local police departments, fire departments, and emergency services. We meet with representatives of those agencies about every 4 to 6 weeks as part of our district team. And the director of security will be, I've been chairing those meetings all last year. And when you have one of those meetings, you have a lot of busy people around the table, a lot of things come up, and there's probably about 15 to 20 things that need follow through from that meeting to the next meeting. The director of security will be the person who makes sure that follow through happens with all of our local support networks. And then we have security staff in all of our buildings. We have about 16 security staff amongst our 6 buildings. And the director of security will co-supervise. And I say co-supervise because the principals will still also be responsible for supervising the people in their building. But we feel like this director of security, again, the word consistency comes up, will help bring a level of consistency and consistent expectations, working with our 6 principals to make sure that the job looks the same in all 6 of our buildings. And so that is something that was discussed in the budget process last year in board meetings. We put it in our budget literature to the community. And we also, Anne Marie and I went around to all 6 school PTOs. We had just kind of open Q&As about this position and everything else that was in the budget, where we had really great conversations with our parents and families about the budget. And then finally, we also had a budget hearing here at the board level where people could ask questions about the budget and whatnot. So we feel it's something that was really part of that budget process. We're excited about hopefully moving forward with that. All right, some other things we're working on. That is a picture of most of our administrative team. They took a couple days away from their family to stand by a waterfall. No, that was just a tiny little part. We took a little 5-minute break. They went to a conference with me in Ithaca that was held by NISCUS. NISCUS is the statewide superintendent council, and they hosted an equity and diversity leadership conference in Ithaca where there was national speakers and then speakers from different school districts talking about best practices. We were really excited to have most of our administrative team there. I think there was about 50 school districts in New York State represented at the conference. There was about 300 some people, and it was really powerful. Some of the quotes from our administrators from that time. At the conclusion of the conference, we all realized that we need to work together and have common language to see a change in attitude and mindset. I appreciated, these are different principals talking, I appreciated having conversations with BCSD colleagues and beginning early planning, identifying action steps to support the equity team leaders in our buildings. I appreciated new perspectives and understanding and addressing student behaviors and discipline in a culturally responsive way. I specifically enjoyed sessions regarding cultural practices that take place during the school day, and by broadening our knowledge of these practices that can help limit the disciplinary infractions that take place on a daily basis. Another principal said the work ahead for me is how do we get the staff that is not in tune with today's students to be more sensitive and understanding. Another administrator wrote, the continual focus of students first will naturally allow for all voices to be heard and for students to feel comfortable and welcome in our school environment. It was a powerful 2 days. Another cool thing about this conference, since it was run through BOCES, it was aidable, so it was an affordable conference to attend. And our team got a lot of time to plan together. They put in about 3 or 4 hours of team planning time within the 2 days, where some of these thoughts that I just shared with you came up, and some really good, intense conversations about moving forward in a unified way to make our district more equitable and more welcoming and inclusive to the diversity of our community. So thank you to the board for supporting that work. Some other things that have been happening this summer or are coming up. We had 5 administrators, including myself, attend a Harvard Design Thinking workshop at the Putnam Westchester BOCES, where we started to talk about some of the same things we talked about at the Ithaca conference, but also moving ahead with district planning. And that was a really good use of time, and again, a local conference that was affordable through the BOCES model. Coming up, we have Sean Bradwell coming back. He worked with our administrators, just administrators, on July 10th. He worked with our administrators on sort of pushing out the diversity goal of the district and becoming a more culturally responsive district through strong leadership. On August 23rd, we have all of our administrators coming back to work with Sean, with 3 teachers from each building. And so we'll have, about 30 to 40 people there with Sean. We will continue those conversations. And those conversations are sometimes hard, they're sometimes difficult, but I think it really gives a good foundation for us moving forward to having a more welcoming and inclusive district. I think the key part of this is we have teacher leaders who are planning on coming to this. We're really excited that a lot of teachers are stepping up and volunteering to do it. And those teachers will hopefully be part of equity teams in each building for the rest of the year, where Sean coincidentally is from Ithaca. He's a professor at Ithaca College and a member of the Ithaca School Board. But Sean will be Skyping in with the different teams throughout the year to kind of coach and help move the work forward in each of our buildings. And then on August 28th, our administrative group will be working on growing as instructional leaders. So this has been obviously summer, we all take our time off, but it's also been an intensive summer of learning and thinking and planning. And I was really impressed with the group at the Equity and Diversity Leadership Conference. Some great conversations started there that I think our entire administrative team is really excited about moving forward with the whole district. So I just wanted to quickly go back to the goals that I brought up at the last board meeting, some possible shifts for these. And again, I apologize to the board. My schedule's been a little goofy lately, and I put this together just a couple hours before the board meeting, so I will work on improving that. But there's no real changes to what I brought about at the July 16th meeting. These changes were based on feedback from Sean. So again, we don't have to take them, but his advice was to narrow the goals a little bit and focus the language. And so I just want to read these proposed changes. These are not like a voting thing tonight. It's just for conversation somewhere down the line. We may want to wait till we have the whole board back together. But the equity diversity goal, I put diversity back in, Craig, because you talked about not wanting to leave that word out. But BCSD will provide an equitable education for all students by working to eliminate race, class, gender, and disability as predictors of success. The excellence goal, the Beacon City School District will create and sustain a culture that supports learning and well-being for all of our students and staff members. I actually tweaked this one a little bit today, and I added staff members to that. It originally just said students, and been doing a little reflecting on that this summer. If we have a learning organization and an organization that cares for the well-being of our students, then we need to have students and staff members there too. Communication goal, the Beacon City School District will enhance communication, dialogue, and community between students, staff, families, and community members. And this is kind of a combination of our communication and community goal from the past. And so just to dig down into these a little bit more, the reason I'm sharing these is at the end of this brief talk, I'm going to talk about some steps moving forward for the strategic planning for the district, but I want to be really, really clear. We're not waiting for a strategic plan to be in place to do a lot of stuff. So we've got a lot of balls moving already this summer. So for our excellence goals, some things we're working on right now. For some for the 18-19 school year, the school year right ahead of us, and some for the 19-20 school year. One is increasing coursework options at the secondary level. I talked at the last board meeting about the grant. We will be exploring adding a second world language. We've been having meetings with our new high school principal, Elisa Soto, already, where she has been talking about the need to add more electives at the high school, so expect to see a lot of proposals coming from her for the 19-20 school year. We're really excited about that. The grant that I mentioned also was moving instrumental music down to 4th grade, and so we posted for that position to see if we can try to start that this school year, so we're excited about that. Another excellent action is increasing utilization of learning technologies. This upcoming year, all of Roundabout Middle School will have teaching screens in every single classroom. All of Roundabout Middle School will have Chromebooks for all the students. So the teachers have what they need to do that one-to-one, and the students will have not the first day of school, but the 7th and 8th graders, I think, will get their Chromebooks the first week. And then 6th graders, we're going to delay for just a little bit so they can get acclimated to middle school before we give them theirs. Plan for the 1920 school year is that all of the teaching screens, all the classrooms at the high school have teaching screens, and all of the high school students have Chromebooks as well. So it doesn't mean the high school doesn't have technology. A lot of the classrooms already have teaching screens, and they have a lot of Chromebook carts. We're just not ready from a structural and resource perspective to just go fully one-to-one in one summer. But our new director of technology, Mike Keeley, is working really hard to make this move, as seamlessly as possible. So along with this, we have a lot of PD being planned. I think a big one to support all this thinking, and I think this really be what ties into a strategic plan, is we have the potential, and this isn't for discussion tonight, but we have the potential for another capital project, either in the 2019 or 2020 school year for a possible vote to the public. And so we really need to be thinking about these things we want to do in our district, whatever they are, that we have the facilities to back them up. So if it's different coursework, new coursework, those kinds of things, that our facilities planning is seamless with that. Equity diversity goal actions, again, I shared this with you before. The creation of the equity report card. My intern from the summer will be handing me what she came up with next week, so we're really excited about getting that from her. I'll share that with the board when I receive that, and I think that will be a good foundation for us to move that work forward. I'm going to create a superintendent student advisory council this year. That will be students from the middle school and the high school that I'll meet with on a monthly basis. That's actually an idea that came out of the Ithaca conference. But one of the things at that conference that was really said over and over was student voice and the importance of listening to student voice. And I felt like I did a lot of listening last year, but I need to increase that times 10. And so one of the ways I'll be going after that is just trying to capture students' opinions, feelings, their voice about a lot of things through this council and through some other activities as well. And I'm excited about that part. Creation of school equity leadership teams. Their training will be on August 23rd with Sean Bradwell with their principals and assistant principals. And then they will have a stipend to continue their planning work with their principals. They'll be planning faculty meetings, maybe events for families, PD, that kind of stuff. They'll be doing a lot of thinking about how do we make our schools more welcoming, more affirming to all of our students and families. Revising the Code of Conduct, I talked that Eric Wright will be heading that up this year. That's a big project. When you do a revision the right way, you're getting a lot of input from community members, from teachers, from staff members, from other principals. And so he'll be heading that up, and we will be working that through the policy committee, probably through the diversity committee as well, and also through full board meetings. And then also always working to our goal that was part of the original board goal, is always having a more diverse workforce, teaching force, principals, etc. The last one are communication goal actions for 18-19. We're going to work on the creation of building level leadership teams too. That's going to be a little bit more. We're going to fold that in the fall, but we're going to meet as an administrative team about that in a couple of weeks, and that will be a team of some teachers and parents to do kind of more long-range, thoughtful planning for each of the schools. I think some principals might call it in other districts like an advisory committee. We're going to call it a building level leadership team, and that will be a chance to not focus on sort of activities coming up like that are about either fundraising or PTO kind of activities, which are very valuable, but instead like how do we create some long-range goals for each school. More community conversations with me, more regular updates from the district on the website and social media, and again, that creation of the Student Advisory Council I think will create a good avenue for students to talk with not just me, but other staff members. So just briefly about strategic planning and where we are. I'll start with the quote. I was reminded of this quote. It's kind of an old, I think it's Peter Drucker who originally said this, but one of the Ithaca speakers talked about this again. Culture eats strategy for breakfast every time. And so that, the key reflection for me for that is if you're going to do strategic planning, you need to do it in a way that feeds culture. And by feeding culture, you're doing a plan that's really incorporating input from all stakeholders. You're having a clear and transparent process. You're not just imposing it on folks. It's an interesting balance act that we're trying to do here because we're trying to move forward on a lot of different initiatives. We're excited about those. But while we're doing that, we want to create a foundation for a long-range planning process that will hopefully be in place for years to come in the district. So I've been doing a lot of reading about strategic planning. I shared some of that with the board, and so over the next few weeks, I'll add some stuff to that Google Drive folder. It's not, it's a good cure for insomnia to read some of that if you're struggling to sleep at night. But some of the things I gleaned from it is when you start the planning process to really get a good sense of the current state. Another must-do is create a steering committee for the advisory or for the strategic planning committee. Another must-do is you have to address the root causes. Don't just sort of, put window dressing on. Another one, I think this is really important for me as I do more of those community conversations, is ask for purposeful feedback. Don't just go in front of folks and say, what do you want different? Have them respond to something. Have them respond to a draft plan. Have them respond to these draft goals. Have them respond to things that you're actually trying to work on. Otherwise, you're going to have a plan with 600 different things. Another thing, obviously, that's important that we're working on doing right now is establish metrics. And then lastly, and I think this gets overlooked, and this is the part I'm really looking at, and this kind of comes from my experience in other districts where a lot of time is put into the development of the plan, and then it just sort of, in the old days, to go in a binder, now it just sort of goes on part of your website that no one ever clicks on. So the key, really the most important part is managing the implementation of the plan. And I think there's some new and innovative ways to do that that we'll be looking into that people feel like it is both transparent in terms of when and how things are getting done, but it also helps keep people accountable. So there may be some aspects of this process that we may need outside help, either with like a software. There's some cool softwares out there that gather input from communities along with the face-to-face conversations. We may need some outside help doing some of this, but I think we can do a lot of this also internally. So I just wanted to update the board that part of the planning process is still moving forward. All right. Any questions about stuff I went over?
Any questions? That was
Yeah.
a lot.
I was really happy to see the professional development for administrators over the summer. The Ithaca Conference,
Yeah.
is that a long-standing annual conference that has been going on for a long time?
It is the first time it's ever happened. The joke was thank you for coming. The joke was they were waiting for me to leave to have it. I'm not sure what they meant by that, but anyway, their goal is to do it again next year.
Okay.
I think they were kind of surprised by the high number of turnout from districts around New York. Obviously, a lot of districts are trying to make their districts more welcoming.
I guess my question was,
Yeah.
has the Beacon School District have we gone to those types of conferences before, or is this a first for us?
I think there's probably always been cases of individuals going.
Okay.
This summer, I really tried to be intentional with some of the things we were trying to do. I noticed talking with Anne Marie and talking with Celia, and I'm not pointing fingers when I say this, but I think over time there has not been much investment in the professional development of the leaders in the district, to be quite honest. I think a lot of it has gone, and rightfully so, to teachers and other folks in the district. So this summer, I really wanted to try to put some resources behind developing our leaders. And like I said, this conference was really kind of cost effective. It was not too far away, you know what I mean, but far enough where we could have some good conversations and kind of really get into it without having all those darn distractions.
great. I think
But
it's great.
it was powerful, and I was honestly surprised. This may sound bad, but I was surprised by folks' willingness to just kind of have the hard conversations already, and so we really are aiming to be intentional, have a lot more to come.
Very good.
I have one question on your changes to the administrative team. You said you're going to put together kind of the list of the roles and responsibilities,
Yeah.
so it's clear, an organizational chart will come along with
Yeah.
that, which shows the correct,
Yeah.
the right lines.
Yeah, I have a draft org chart. I'm getting feedback both from board members and also administrative team folks. I'll be making some changes to that. Tomorrow will be sort of like a rough sort of here's what these folks will be doing. Not rough, but like it will list kind of like the 6 or 7 key things that Eric and Celia will be doing. That will go out internally in the district. And then when we get closer to the school year, we'll put out even a sort of a more advanced kind of list of their duties. But in a way, it's kind of, it won't be a huge change for us in the district because it's kind of how it's been working. It's just sort of officially changing it, to be honest. So.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, I appreciate the good work that's being put in, the head work on this goals. The last issue of board goals was done essentially by the board, and I think we need to have more board discussion in here. I'm not looking to rubber stamp anything that's been presented to us. I don't know how the rest of us feel here, but I would like to have a more elaborate discussion about the various elements of this. I'm sure we can all count to 5. I don't really buy the idea that downsizing this to just 3. I do like the idea that each of them has a number of objectives underneath of it. There's nothing in here about finances or fiscal, which I find to be kind of an omission. So those are my initial reactions to it. I think it would be good if we had a workshop meeting where we talked about this in greater detail.
Yeah.
That's my question. I wanted to ask, in your description of the Director of Security responsibilities, you talk about the co-supervise of the principals. I was wondering if you could maybe break that down a little bit about how that supervision of the security staff will function.
Yeah, it's some of the training that the security staff will receive will be from the Director of Security. That could be sort of basic stuff like CPR training or the de-escalation training that we started doing last year. So that will come from the director, purview. And so I want the director then supervising them on those elements. Like, once you've been trained in something, are you able to actually implement your training? But the director is going to be going around between the buildings. The principal works side by side with these folks every single day. And so when they sit down to do that final evaluation, I want them sitting down together to do it, both the pre-part with the employee. I want those two folks together, and then like the post part of the evaluation. When I was a principal, I had a number of positions in my building that I was able to co-supervise. I think with something like this, I don't think it will be a huge problem in terms of them not knowing where to go to. Like, their principal will be there in their building every single day. They'll know when to go to the director. But what's really worked for me, it sounds kind of simple. It's making sure the director and the principals are always talking, making sure that there's issues, that they're kind of talking about those issues together, both sort of before they meet with the employee and then during the employee, that they do all those things together. I think that that part is essential for me. We kind of use that model, quite honestly, with supervision of some of our staff right now. I supervise all the principals, but a lot of times those meetings will be like me and someone else from my team doing the evaluation of the principals, so that it's something that I think will come naturally to us. And when, if the position gets approved and we move forward with it, we're planning on having the director meet with our whole administrative team. We have kind of a series of training days the week of August 20th, and so that will be a key week to kind of flesh out exactly how that's going to look with all of our principals. And, you know, our feeling about this is that it will be a collaborative job.
Will, when it comes to defining the sort of day-to-day responsibilities of the security staff, will that fall to the responsibility of the security director to define, or will that still be the individual school administrator?
I think that will be us working on that as a team. I think one of the things we really noticed last year was that there was some inconsistent practice amongst the 6 buildings. And so, you know, there's just to be honest, there's different areas in our district that aren't as consistent as they should be. This is one. And so this is one that the director will work with me, work with the principals and other members of my team, hashing it out in meetings like we do other stuff to try to make it consistent. And so sometimes those conversations are tough because they involve, you know, specific people or that kind of thing. But we got to get through it to work on that consistency. So I see that happening. I see those conversations happening at administrative team meetings. I'll be working really closely with the director of security. If that person has any concerns like outside of our regular meetings, not hopefully, they'll come to me to talk about those. We'll have regular meetings where we talk about it, and then we'll try to solve it in our principal meetings together too. Without one thing I've known, being a principal for a really long time, if the principal's not on board with something, you're adding a high level of, like a high risk of something not working out, because most things do fall back to the principal. So I really want the principals on board with those conversations, and we can only do those in groups, and we meet a lot, and there's a lot of stuff we have to hash through. So this will be one, because this one's been on the list for a while.
Thank you so much. All right, committee reports. Mike, you want to start?
Sure. I'll start out with the Facilities and Operations Committee meeting. We had a meeting where we went over, we got the update on the present status of the capital plan with our architects. Right now, the construction phase or construction documents are completed, and they are being submitted to SED for initial review, and then they'll go for the actual review process, which we expect will be completed mid to end of November, and that'll set us up perfectly for starting to go into the the bid development process, request for proposals for the actual construction, which will be starting next year in the springtime, hopefully. We also got a presentation from 2 of the turf vendors talking about their different systems, and our construction managers were there who have got a lot of experience in installing turf fields, so they were able to help teach us, and they're part of the process. We are going to be developing a bid specification that'll go out for request for proposals for the turf piece of the project. The next meeting, we're still.
You want to go with the 22nd?
I didn't get feedback from everybody. The 22nd of August.
Not for me.
So that's the only date we have left this in August. So can we say that it is going to be on the 22nd, and then we'll have to, if Kristen can't, and we need to change it, then we'll have to put out notice that it's changed.
So can I piggyback, and we haven't had a policy meeting yet, and I was going to look to see if we could piggyback and do policy on the same date. And I was going to ask the people on the policy committee if that would work.
22nd, we're talking about?
The 22nd.
I think that should be fine for me.
It's fine with me.
Anthony?
I got something on 8 Wednesday, but I don't think that's the Wednesday I have to do something, so I think I'm available.
So Mike, I was asking, would you want us before or after?
No, I can't do before.
Yeah, I'd rather do.
So you could do 8.
Yeah.
So can you do 7?
We'll do 7 to
15.
8:15.
And the policy would do 8:15.
Where does that meet?
District office.
Okay.
Thank you. I just know that there's some policies that we need to start looking at, and we need to appoint a chair and stuff, so I figured that would be a good first meeting.
Good.
Thank you.
A few other points. Happy to see that the facilities planning as a piece of the discussion that Dr. Landau gave, because really when you're looking at new programs and processes, the facilities need to be a piece of it. So it's all got to be together in one strategic plan for it all to work, budgeting wise and and resource wise.
Yeah, one of the things, I'll just jump in on that. This conference was held in Ithaca High School, and so during one of the breaks, we took a brief tour of some of the spaces they have there that we currently don't have in our high school. And so even though the students weren't in the learning spaces, Henry was part of that, and most of our administrators were able to get around. So it was just cool for them to see. They have some technology rooms that we don't have. They have some other facilities that we don't have either. They're a bigger district, but it was just good for us to kind of start seeing that. So I realized we probably should set up some other, just to get the wheels turning sometime this upcoming school year, some tours of some facilities where they have spaces we don't have.
That's a good point. We should do that. And like you said, between security modifications that we need to do and these other facility modifications between 2020 and 2022, I think there's some good opportunity there. I also do like what you're talking about with the director of security. I think right now, really, the building security personnel report to the individual principals. So really good consistency, after all the issues that have occurred across the country in our terrorist report, having, consistency across the district, not just in policy and procedure, but then oversight, governance and oversight to make sure those are happening on a day-to-day basis is really important. I know you maintain ultimate responsibility for security, but when you need to have somebody out there, working with the facilities committee, working with local towns and emergency services, in order to carry that as their main, day in and day out job and direction. So I think that's really important for the, for the district going forward. So I'm glad that we're going to go forward with this position.
Mike, I just want to let you know that all the documents for the capital project have been signed and they're going out tomorrow, Kelly, to the state for review.
Oh, fantastic.
So that will be day one.
We're on schedule.
We are on schedule.
We're on schedule, yeah.
Anthony signed those faster than I've ever seen you sign something.
And one question I have to ask, because in the past it's been an issue, for starting up in the fall, do we have all materials we need, textbooks and all the things that?
We've been ordering like crazy, so yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure of that.
As far as I know. If anyone doesn't have something, they have to let me know.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you. Melissa?
Well, I think I asked the question that I had earlier about the conference. It seems like it's maybe the first time that an initiative has been taken as the group of administrators for professional development. I think that's great. Was it the same with the BOCES, the workshop at BOCES? Have we been to that before?
I think that was a new one as well, but it was a smaller team that went, and we really liked it, so we were hoping it's offered again next year.
Okay, great. I don't really have any other comments at this time. I have some other thoughts that I'd like to bring up when the rest of the board when we're all here. So I'll hold those comments and questions until we're all back together.
Great.
Thanks.
Anthony?
So, good evening. The diversity committee is off this summer, but I did get a message from Jeff Sims from Highland Current who wants to talk to me about the diversity committee, and I do understand that you already talked to Matt at length. So I think Matt answered most of his questions. I just think he just wants my opinion as a head of that committee. The folks that came to support the comment on the basketball, I see that they left already, and he asked, what does the board also think about that as well? You know, that's a question that I think we brought up before, and I mean, I honestly don't know how to address it. You know, I don't know the full scope of that issue. It would be good to get something more at length to see if there's something that we could address, if it's something that, that does it need some more of a creative solution to address. But I do know that when it comes to sports scholarships, sports, you know, people, a lot of students that can't afford college, this is their way to get to college. So it is a step to success, and I think it's a very important step for athletes to be able to take that step. And community partnering is something that we talked about before as well, and maybe that kind of leads into basketball, maybe it doesn't. But you know, it's also one of our board goals. It didn't make the more distilled goals. You know, we talked about, you know, what process do we have, and I do know we have a communication protocol, but maybe a partnering protocol would be helpful to send people to the right place. Some folks ask me, you know, do I talk to the principal? Do I talk to the superintendent? Do I make a presentation for the board? You know, and you know, I guide them the best as I can, but sometimes I don't even know who they should talk to. So I think if we could do something better with community partnering in terms of a process, I think good. I see that the Board of Ed, us, have a group email that's also on our website. Thank you very much for that. My question is, does it just include just the 9 members, or does it include the superintendent?
Just the board. That would be
Just the board.
typical protocol.
Gotcha. All right, thank you very much.
Because they might be emailing you about me,
Okay.
potentially.
All right.
Yep.
Fair enough. And then I'd like to hear in the future, in a workshop, you know, how is the restorative justice program? I know we sent a couple of teachers for training on that. You know, where are we with that, and what do we need to get the program started? Do you need more support from the board? Is it just a matter of time? Do you need to send more people for training? You know, stuff like that. And I also want to echo some of Craig's comments on the goals as well. I think a wide kind of a team approach on the conversation would be best. Especially, you know, he picked out one thing that fell off. I think community partnering thing fell off. So that's all I say.
Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question? Sorry, if I can. The board goals, were they always meant to be kind of a living document per se, or were they always meant to be something that evolved, the goals?
Really dependent on what the board wants to do with them. Sometimes you might say, okay, this goal is, we attained it and it's a cultural, so you might replace it with a different topic completely.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the board might decide, hey, we need to rank up the intensity of this and put more effort on that piece.
Okay.
And I think what Matt is proposing, instead of just having a board goals, to make them district goals,
Yep.
so the administration could tie into it as well. So it's a whole led piece. Last year in the beginning was the first time we developed goals since I was on the board. We talked about it and we started to create a vision, and people, you know, were getting together to do a vision statement and mission statement, and that really didn't follow through piece with that. So we always said that we were going to get there. It always seems like the plate gets full and what gets pushed, that aspect does. But I think that as a board, and I agree with Craig, as you know, we need that administrative kind of direction as to what's going on. I think it was great the way Matt outlined it,
Mm-hmm.
but I also think that the board needs to really discuss it and get the inputs. I think the framework that Matt had shown us and presented to the community and us gives us a nice starting block as to how we want to fine tune it and what he envisions and the district administration envisions as being part of that goal. But now we can really define that piece.
Okay.
So I appreciate the work because I know last year it was really hard and time consuming when the board we met like, what, 4 or 5 times before a board meeting started to try and come up with it, and it was really an ad hoc process as to how we went about it. Is with all of our knowledge, we kind of went that way and came some.
Yeah, I mean, if I can weigh in, you know, I feel that the goals are alive.
Yeah.
You know, the living documents, parliamentary procedure, you can bring it up and see if the consensus is to change them at any point in time. But in order for goals to be effective, you know, you kind of want them to sit and be distributed, and kind of like what Anthony was saying, be acted upon and see how it could be, how the administration and everyone else can meet those goals. But they're also, we only approve them for only that term, for that school year.
Okay.
So, you know, they're going to be looked at whether we like it or not. So.
Right. I mean, to me, it makes sense that they evolve every year as we have more improvements or more changes and transitions. It makes sense that we
That's the hope.
add and subtract, right?
I think that's the hope.
And that's the
And
point,
the goal
right?
of the goals is to kind of increase it and evolve with
Okay.
it as they evolve. And sometimes you'll see that, you know, the district may focus on one of them, particularly because the need, right?
Right.
We're hearing the need and we're giving feedback of what we're hearing in the community.
Mhm.
And so that becomes more of an important goal than maybe the other ones. Not that one's more than important than the other. I think the board approving the goals gives them weight as to saying, hey, here's representatives of the community, and we're saying, yeah, we agree with these, and this is what we need to go with. So working on them and, you know, doing the district business that the administration has to do,
Mhm.
that's okay because we can then refine them and go with that.
Okay, thanks.
So yeah, I agree with Anthony, that's a limit. Craig, were you done? I'm sorry. Did you do?
I didn't start.
Okay. I'm sorry.
I'll start. Okay. On the restructuring, I like this plan because, number one, it's just a realignment. We're not adding positions or deleting positions. We're putting talents where we need them and where the job is a little more clearly defined. And at first I thought, we'll see what he comes up with, but now that I see it in more detail, I do like it, and believe it will be a step forward. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes that the public doesn't always see, but brother, it is there, and the administration deals with it all the time. So the more you're able to focus upon particular aspects, I think the better a job will happen at the end. Plus, they all talk with each other all the time, so nobody's leaving any topic totally uncovered. So that's a step forward. I'm pleased to see that we're moving forward on a director of security. I like the fact that we have a position like that because I want to get started. It's a 1-year position. We're trying this out, and in the back of my mind, there is always the presence of undefined dangers lurking out there, and I don't want to delay, but to move forward and take this path and get it done. I think that the facilities and operation presentation on turfs was one of the most interesting technical presentations I've seen. I know a lot more about artificial grass than I ever thought I needed to know. These are the 2 biggest vendors, and there are others who may show up depending upon how it goes when we go out to do the bidding process. But we're paying a lot of attention to that. And school starts around the corner before you know it, and the staff has been very busy doing a lot of stuff, even though the students aren't thinking much about it yet. And that's a tribute to those who have the 12-month positions. So thank you all.
Well, I want to say that I'm excited to hear there's more mention of restorative practices in our disciplinary approach throughout the district. I think it's a really positive move direction for us to be headed. We received an email from a parent who was discussing the suspension rates at Rombout. which I was not aware of. I had not looked at that data, and I was very surprised to see that Rombout, we have 11% of the population in the 2015-2016 year was suspended. You compare that to Van Wyck Junior High was 2%, Wappingers 7%, and Haldane were 0%. That raises some questions about how discipline is being used. I know we're looking at the code of conduct this year, and I'm glad we're looking at that and thinking about maybe different ways that we can manage our student population, their adherence to the code of conduct. In that same vein, I'm very excited to see the security, the director of security position moving forward. I have had my own experiences, and I've heard many other parents sort of echo concerns about inconsistency throughout the district. I, for one, have personally seen many of our security staff being asked to perform responsibilities that fall outside of strict security. I think that these are things that could be brought in. I think this is echoed in the Alteris report as well, where you have security guards being asked to sit in and watch recess, or to be lunch monitors, or to do these kind of, or even to sub in classes at times. I think it's not fair for security staff to ask them to do things that are outside of their job description, and it's not fair to ask them to cover up maybe other holes in our staffing. I also think getting our security staff focusing on school security and ground security falls in line with what Alteris is suggesting that we do, is really keeping the ground safe. A major direction which I would really love to see, and I think this is echoed in Alteris, and Matt, you were saying this as well, is bringing more consistency in what we ask, to the degree to which we ask our security staff to enforce violations of code of conduct, particularly nonviolent violations of code of conduct. I think this might be a bit of a culture shift, but I think it's one that will ultimately be better both for security staff and for our students. So I hope to see that. I hope to see that being something that our director of security can implement and doesn't have too much friction with administration or student teachers. I think that's primarily that's what I have on my mind. So that's good.
So I'm going to ask the district administrators, do we know when the district safety committee is meeting?
I was going to wait for the appointment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then we were going to establish it. I think we'd love to try to have an initial meeting before all the kids come back, but maybe I'll get some proposed dates tomorrow morning.
Anthony,
Yep.
are you creating a new sheet like you did last year?
It's on there. I resent it. I just changed the title to 1819, and I have it.
Oh.
If it was shared with you, you should have it.
Okay, thanks.
Just for the one challenge with scheduling the district team is we have a pretty wide variety of, police department, fire, emergency services, a lot of different agencies attending. So sometimes, the time and whatnot is a little bit of a challenge, but I think we can get hopefully together either right before the school year starts or right after, just so everybody knows. Even with that, the state requires that the plans that we make for both the district and the schools, that they get submitted at the end of September. So kind of now is when we work on the changes to the plans.
The audit committee, when do we typically meet for that? I know
You
it's
will
not.
be reached out for a conversation. They're coming the week of August 20th. I have not heard from them yet. So you usually have either a phone conference or we'll try to do something before the beginning of the meeting. And then you'll have one again in October. So as soon as I get a date, I'll let you know.
Okay, and just for the members of that committee, we typically do it before the board meeting at 6 o'clock, and then go right into the board meeting. So just so you know, we typically meet with the outside auditors, and then they would share a report with us, the preliminary report, correct? It's not
The first meeting is any concerns, the
Right.
second meeting is the preliminary
Yeah,
report.
so that would be August, and then the other one would be October.
October.
I found it.
What is this August meeting?
The August is when they kind of meet with the audit committee, and we would share any.
What is the date? Do we have?
We
a
don't
date?
have
We don't have a
Still
date. She was
working?
just telling me the months, August and October.
They're coming to district on August 20th. It might be a phone conversation instead, but I'll let you guys know.
What about the district technology committee? Do we know that?
We don't.
Okay, health and wellness,
We don't have that either.
okay, and the curriculum,
We don't have that.
September?
Yeah, we'll have all those in the coming weeks.
Okay.
I found it, thanks. It's under Kelly's.
I saw you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then Craig for the Public Relations Advocacy Legislative Committee.
Not in
Still
August.
reaching out yet, not in August. Okay. And so I just wanted, for my board comments, I wanted to follow up at the last board meeting. There was discussion about trying to get a resolution to NISBA so they can act upon it at their annual meeting, and we had one day to get that in by 5 o'clock on the 17th. It's not as simple as taking the wording that Craig had, and there's strict guidelines, and there's a whole resolution kit that I pulled off of NISBA. So it will not be at this year's resolution meeting because it's a 16-page aspect. You need to show up backup information, the beliefs as to why you feel it needs to be passed, and then you can't have any whereases in the resolution. And so there's some strict guidelines, but I did try, and I actually spoke to the person that had to submit it with our attorney, Dan, and tried to see if we could get some leniency to try and get it done within the week, but they're pretty strict with it. And when they passed it from the 16th to the 17th, they were like, oh, well, we gave an extra day. So I just wanted to follow up with that I'm still going to submit, but I'm going to submit it for the next year part. So I don't want you to think that's it. I think that if we wanted to as a local board, when I have the resolution, I could share that, and then we could act upon it as our board, and then we could send it out to our legislators and the legislator that's the chairperson of education for the state, and say this is something that we're doing, and then they'll have at least some headway up. So I went to Plan B, Plan A, we didn't have enough time for it. I didn't want you to think that it just fell. I just couldn't do it within that strict time frame with the amount of stuff that was required.
Thank you for trying.
Guys, question? Yeah, thank you for trying to get that together. It's a lot. Just so I understand you, when we do have it ready, we'll be able to send it up. The Plan B is the.
So Plan B was because we couldn't get it to this annual meeting for NISBA to vote on at the annual meeting, which is at the end of the NISBA conference, which is October 27th, I want to say. Plan B was to have us as a board pass it, and then send that resolution. We could say, hey Kelly, can you send this to our legislators? And then I'm recommending that we send it to the chairperson of education for New York State legislator that represents and chairs that, so they have it, and then still go forth with having it ready to go once they open the submissions for the resolutions for the next annual meeting. So then we can have it, and they'll have at least a heads up that, hey, Beacon passed this resolution, and now they're submitting it to NISBA. If it's supported by NISBA, it just gives it that much more weight because it represents all the districts in the state, and then that will really put pressure on.
That's great. But we can send it up the legislative ladder
Correct.
before.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, we could. It's just when it's one district,
Right.
it may not have as much weight, and so we were thinking that if it was NISBA and it was passed at that convention, that it would have more weight.
Because I think-
But then NISBA's batting average is not so spectacular either. So,
We do realize that, right?
and trying to get things through the New York State legislature is not necessarily easy, as everybody who's been there can say. We might want to touch base with the commissioner's office, see what the commissioner thinks about this, since
Yeah.
they would have some role in this one way or the other.
Well, I'll actually see if the convention, she'll be there speaking,
That's right.
and so we can.
Maybe we can buttonhole her.
Right. What's that? I know she's meeting today about charter schools with all the BOCES superintendents. Found that out, so.
I have a question, but I'm not sure if it goes to Craig or to you, Anthony. The communication protocol we have is actually has a date, 2017-2018 school year, which is fair. Does it fall under the PR committee to revise for this year, or does it fall under someone else?
Are you talking about the protocol, like who to contact first, or second, or third?
Yeah.
I didn't take that date as it only being appropriate for the 17-18 school year. I took that as it was established, that protocol was established during that school year, that it didn't have an end date.
Okay.
That was my belief of it, because I don't think a protocol should just end at the end of the school year,
Mhm.
and it's not something that needs board approval. So I was just taking that hey, it was developed during this school year, and it goes forward.
Good, thank you. So I'll just keep pointing people to that. Sorry.
Okay. I have no other board comments except to say thank you. Working in the school system, seeing and hearing what Matt is doing with the administrative team this summer is extensive amount of work. And it's not to say that other districts don't do it, it's just seeing what he's doing with the administrative team and how it's a team effort is something that's not a common practice that happens in all districts. I worked in 3 districts, and I can tell you 2 of them as administrators, and the retreats that I've had and experienced weren't as extensive, and the PD that's being followed up is really, you find your own, and to make it a district initiative, I'd like to commend you on that piece, because that doesn't typically happen in school districts, and I'm just talking from my personal experiences. I haven't seen that, and if you talk to other district people in other districts, I don't know if you'd hear that that's happening. So that's something that it wasn't an initiative of the board to say, hey, get this done. It was, I really think Matt listened to the board goals and looking to see how we can drive them here in the community, and us telling him the feedback that he came up with this plan. And that's part of the plan, I think, and we'll see how that filters through the year. So, good job.
Thank you to your team.
I'll bust his chops when I have to, but that's something I had to praise him on right in this moment there. All right, so we have the consent agenda. We have no unfinished business. I think I would have this memorized by now.
The reason for the consent agenda is...
I do know it, but I'm afraid I'm going to miss a little bit. All right, the use of the consent agenda permits the Board of Education to make more effective use of its time by adopting a single motion to cover those relatively routine matters which are included. Any member of the board who wishes to discuss individually a particular piece of business on a consent agenda may so indicate, and the item will be considered and voted on separately, thus preserving the right of all board members to be heard on any issue. Is there anything from the consent agenda that a board member would like pulled?
Yeah, I'd like to pull 11.03J.
Any other items from the consent agenda?
11.04J, 11.08, and 11.09.
We don't need to pull the corrections, right?
No, I said them when I was reviewing the agenda, and I said we'd be voting on them with the adjustments that I stated in when we reviewed it. So I need a motion to approve 11.02 through 11.16 minus 11.03J, 11.04J, 11.08, and 11.09.
So moved.
Anthony, is there a second? Mike, comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. I need a motion to approve 11.03J.
So moved.
Second. Comments or questions?
So I had I have questions. Mostly this is of the director of security. As a new board member, I wasn't part of maybe some of the initial vetting conversations. This is in no way a vote of a questioning of confidence in the candidate, but I would like to have the opportunity to meet the candidate. I think this is a very important position. It's a new position, and I'd like to have the opportunity to meet with the candidate and maybe have more discussion before voting on this, so I'd like you to table it.
So typically, can I just?
Yeah, please do.
So typically, the board hasn't met with any candidates prior to their appointment besides principals. And we did meet with the director of technology this year when we, prior to appointing, and that was set up, I think, because we were just meeting with the other principals that were hired. But that was more of an anomaly than a practice. That was the first time that we met with.
Well, maybe we should go into that thinking. I kind of thought we were meeting with Direct Technology because we were changing the position. Yeah, because the previous.
So I
the
just wanted to
previous
explain
director-
that
Right.
we didn't typically
You haven't-
meet with if it wasn't a principal. And I think this year it did happen that it worked out when we were hiring 2 other administrators, and
Right.
then the director of technology was there, that we included that as hey, meet the board type of thing.
Yeah.
So that's a new practice, but I'm hearing you asking, you're making a motion to.
Well, I think, I also understand that there's a salary increase that's proposed, that's negotiated. I don't think that's unreasonable considering the responsibilities that we're asking. But this is, it's a new position. I think they're, with the Alteris security report combined with the code of conduct we're revisiting this year, I think there's going to be some things that are shifting around. That being said, I'd like to give I'd like this question that I'd like to ask. I'd like to have a better sense
So I
of
just
what we're
want to
doing with that. So that's
you're
my
making
question.
a motion to table?
So I'd make a motion to table to the next meeting to give us time to meet with the candidate and have discussion about the salary increase and the position as well.
So James is making a motion to table 11.03. Is there a second for that? Hearing no second, the motion to table is denied. So I need a motion to approve 11.03J, and that was by Mike and then Anthony. And is there any other discussion about 11.03J?
My, looking at where we are with coming up into the school year, really think we should move forward, with the position in order to get them established in place and get the, plans together, so we can transition, smoothly. Matt's been fielding a lot of the burden when it comes to the overarching security issues, so having this position in place will really help. The ultimate goal is the security of the buildings and the children. Really it takes time to get these things up and in place. So, so I think we really need to move forward with the position. That's my comment.
Yeah, I was going to make a similar comment. My concern is timing. It's already August 6th, so it's not even. But maybe perhaps we can meet with him afterwards. No, well, I mean, not after the meeting tonight, but as a group, maybe come up with an agenda and then discuss what our concerns are in terms of security.
And I personally think that should come from district administration and not from the board. If we have concerns about the position, we talked about the position ad nauseum when we were creating it.
Oh, no, and I don't mean to bypass Matt. I mean, maybe we list our concerns, direct them to Matt, and then we have just a meeting with Matt, and Matt can bring the director.
I'm fine with sharing with Matt and having him share with the employees. That's fine. All right, all those in favor of 11.03J?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. I need a motion for 11.04J.
Motion to approve 11.04J instructional personnel list.
Second.
Mike Anthony, go ahead. Discussion.
I gotta make sure I get the right one. This is, J is for the club advisors at Beacon High School. And my question is, are we going to know at all what the participation is in all of these clubs and what the plans are for, for increasing or tailoring these to help get the maximum benefit to the most students possible?
Yeah, we are. We've already spoken with Ms. Soto about this, and she's going to work with Eric Wright to create a better reporting mechanism, both to us, and then to the board. I think it's important. Co-curricular or extracurricular involvement is probably one of the leading indicators of a student's connection to school. So finding, the community's investing a lot of funds into these clubs, and I think making sure that they're being well utilized is very important, and it's just kind of funny timing because we have with our new principals, we meet with them every week as a team just to make sure they're getting all the support they need, all the questions answered. And so this came up in our last meeting with Elisa on Friday of last week, and so she said she's on it. And so with that particular one, now that we have a little bit more division of duties, Eric will be the person supporting her with that collection. We also I know this isn't what you're asking, but both at the middle school level, there's some interest in creating a couple of new clubs. So we're going to work with Brian Soltish on making a few new ones. He's kind of he's had some students come to him with some ideas, and the teachers come to him with ideas. And so all it really takes is us working with BTA and creating an MOA for a new club. So it's not impossible to do. In fact, it's just a little bit of collaboration. So look for some new ones hopefully this year. And as we get that data that you're asking for, there could be one that we don't want to continue because we have 30 kids doing this one and only 2 or 3 or whatever doing this other one. So I am interested in this data as well.
Good. Thank you.
Sorry for the long speech, but it was funny. We've just been talking about this before your email.
So I'm glad you mentioned what Mr. Soldier is working on too, because I was actually going to ask about that process. When you also collect the data, a lot of these clubs they only meet either Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, because we don't provide after school transportation, at least for the high school, on Monday or on Friday. So a student that wants to join multiple clubs may have to make a decision which club they have to join. Someone in sports cannot attend certain things. And the Beacon players also is a very huge time commitment, can't join certain things. Can we capture that somehow in the data when we're collecting? Or is that maybe a survey of some sort?
Yeah, I mean, there's always some choice element, and I'm not sure how we capture all the choices a student might make, but we'll see what we can do. I understand totally what you're asking. I'm just not sure from a data perspective what's doable.
Sure. And the one thing also that came up when I think I talked about this back in 2010, having some sort of a club fair, I guess, where students can see what is on the menu. And you were talking about actually kind of expanding to trying to figure out, like maybe even a think tank of like what would you be interested in, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, because some students depends on their their personalities. They may come forward and they may not come forward. So, and I think we want to kind of nurture them to speak for themselves and come forward with other ideas. I think back then there was actually skateboarding, and I remember it was Pokemon or something. But but if it and I agree, and I can hear Eric talking. It's tied to curriculum, so as long as it ties to curriculum.
I like the club fair aspect. I think that's something in the beginning of the year like that, where you can each have a little booth and little drop boxes to, hey, this is a club I didn't see. I think that would be awesome.
Yep.
I think you'll be pleased to know that Ms. Curiosoto has a number of those ideas of how to, one, build excitement and interest among her students here at the high school, as well as the awareness. So some new things on the horizon for 9th grade orientation. And I know that will extend into the larger student community. So we can talk with her more specifically.
Yeah, if you could pass
She
that
may
on.
already be on
If you could pass that on,
the
I appreciate it.
pathway on some of this.
Yeah.
They're great ideas and they're ways we can help kids.
I have a question about communicating to students through their email.
Hold up.
Oh,
We're
sorry.
on the voting for the clubs. Does that have to pertain
Yes.
to that?
Is it
I'll
about?
I
save
just don't want to get
I'll
lost
save
as
it
to what
for-
we're voting on.
I'll save it for another time. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion about the 11.04J? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 6-0. 11.08, and I'm not going to forget about you. I'm going to come back.
Okay.
11.08, is there a motion to approve 11.08?
Motion to approve 11.08, amend school meal prices adopted at the July 2nd, 2018 organizational.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or questions?
Question, could you explain how these prices are set? There's a discussion of an equity tool, just want to understand how that works and if we're doing the same across, in compliance with the state.
The equity tool is something that's put out by the USDA, so it's a mandatory requirement. When I had asked Karen at reorg meeting, she kind of did it without plugging the numbers in, trying to be a ballpark. It has to be very close to free and reduced lunch.
Okay.
And all districts throughout have to do it. So what she found was the breakfast was fine, but the lunch was 5 cents off on both elementary and secondary. So that's what the change is.
All right. Good, thank you. Thank you.
Any more discussion?
Do we, and we've had this actually a couple times every so often, if someone in the community wants to donate to help kids that, are behind in their lunch, or, they don't fall within the criteria to get free lunch, but they don't have enough money to get lunch, I mean, can that be listed somewhere or posted somewhere?
So Anthony brought up a good point about the policy committee, and we do have one policy, which is the meal shaming policy, which needs to be approved before school opens.
Okay.
And that talks a lot about children that don't have money. It talks about what we do about it, what we offer children for lunch when they don't have money, and how we go about not making the child ever feel bad because he doesn't have money on his account. So that might address that, and I think we're going to talk about that in the policy committee.
Okay.
So that might be a good time.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. I need a motion for 11.09.
Motion to approve 11.09 surplus district vehicles.
There's a second.
Second.
And you left, and she was here too.
Oh, see?
You would have made her proud twice.
We
Asking
need her-
about the clubs,
We need her up.
and then the
Someone's got to
transportation.
carry the torch, but we need her up on the big screen.
Comments or questions?
So the fourth bus in the list, there's only, okay, this is a list of surplus buses that we're gonna sell. So the fourth bus is only 8 years old, still under 200,000 miles, although it's 171,000 miles, but it just simply says that, there's rust, so could you just expand a little bit at why we have to get rid of this bus
So,
and not hold on to it and try
I
to get a
would-
little extra life out of it?
I would love to be the one that would know most about it, so I did reach out to Ron Mackey about it. So these are recommendations from our head bus mechanic to Ron and then to the board. So the mileage, although it doesn't look like a lot for a bus, it is a lot of mileage. It's probably the type of mileage it is. You and I spoke a little bit before about the year and the mileage being, like long trips to an out-of-district placement. So although there might be some other things, they try to see, we have like a 98, 99% rate with DOT, so that's what we strive for, to make sure that all the vehicles are safe and,
You mean availability rate or non-breakdown rate, you mean?
not
or-
well, just passing compliance. There's a lot of tests and stuff that go on. Because if you don't do well in DOT, it has to come out of service and then back into service. So these were the recommendations brought forward by the head bus mechanic. So I don't want to say that I know more. I would not know more than that. But he's been with us for many years. He's very diligent about making sure that the fleet is safe. So I don't think that he would bring this forward if he thought that we could use it for some other reason.
Can we schedule a bus garage visit?
Yeah, did you
I
guys
still,
get that tour?
we never got a bus garage tour, so I will put the plug in now.
You will get it.
It's because you travel all the time for work.
This
Well,
is his
so-
last
well-
year, his 3-year term.
Yes.
We need to see the
Okay,
bus garage.
tour
Well,
of
there's
the
a
bus
lot,
garage.
there's also a lot of things on the capital plan, so we need to go take a look at it. So
There are some things down there that you need to look at.
Okay.
So I agree.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Go ahead.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I just had a question about, and this came up in another group that I'm part of, about communicating to students via their email address, their school email addresses. To your point about communicating with students about clubs and what opportunities are available to them. For in-school, school-sponsored activities and clubs, but also extracurricular and out-of-school activities and clubs that kids may not know about. For example, those of us who are on Facebook, if we're hooked into the Facebook community in Beacon, we hear about opportunities for kids. But for those who aren't so hooked into the Facebook community, they may not be hearing about different opportunities for their kids at, say, the Garrison Art Center or some other opportunity. Is there a protocol for reaching students with an email blast? Does that go on? Is that something that the district allows, or is anyone doing something like that now?
You mean for something that, like your example, like there's an art workshop at the
Howard Cultural Center.
For anything that's happening in the community that students may not know about, or for parents who may be interested in something like, hypothetically, an art club that is not a school-sponsored art club, where parents may not know about it if they're not hooked into the social media community in town. I just wondered, is there a way to reach students at their, now that we have middle school, Chromebooks in the middle school and in the high school in the future, is there an avenue to reach students that way? Or are there privacy concerns? Is there security concerns about that sort of thing?
I mean, we wouldn't be, I think under your example, it'd be people would submit information to us and then we would maybe share it. We don't have a protocol. It's kind of an issue that can get a little complicated because sometimes the requests for access to this can get a little intense. But I totally understand what you're saying. I have yet to figure out like the perfect solution to it. Because then it puts somebody in the position of sort of saying yes or no to different things, and that sometimes is, I don't know, it can get a little complex. I haven't figured out the answer to this either.
The one thing, we are one in the district that I work in, and that was a discussion at one point. The concern that a lot of people brought up was if they're getting like a robo email and teachers are emailing them, they may start becoming overwhelmed with emails and then miss the ones that they need instead of the ones that are optional.
Okay.
So I'm not opposed to it, but I think that it would have to be vetted as to what it would be.
I can imagine a sort of a digest, like a once a week, one email that lists, here are the opportunities for the month of October.
I think that's where a website design would come in play, like when the students log on to the Chromebook as to activities or something that show up.
Except these would be out of district things.
Or in district.
Yeah.
To Anthony's point about a club fair, I think that's an awesome idea. And to take it a step further, to do it in a virtual way, to present a menu to students electronically for those who may not be able to attend a club fair. Just a thought, if you're not opposed, then it's something that maybe we can talk about in the future.
Why don't we put that on a future agenda?
Okay.
Maybe if the agenda is later in the next second meeting in August, we could put that on as unfinished business, a discussion about communication with students through one-on-one devices for, I'll just put ...
Right.
And then we can have a discussion of that, and then that discussion, we could come to a consensus, and that would give them a better direction as to what we're looking for.
That'd be great, thank
That
you.
would also be a formal policy governing the use of district email for information promotional purposes.
It might be necessary anyway, now that the middle schoolers, a lot of students are gonna have these Chromebooks. I'm sure that it might come up in the future anyway, right, assumedly.
Well, I think that's where the vetting and the discussion, and then they'll have a little bit in what has to go through policy, what has to go through practice and procedures and so forth. They piloted it this year, so we did pilot. So what was that literature that we sent home to the parents? What did that look like and so forth with the procedures and stuff? I would have to refresh myself. I don't remember.
Yeah, I was going to say in preparation for that item at the next meeting, can we see what is right now? Because I know we have to sign a technology thing that says I won't do this with my email. So if we can get that circulated in preparation for that meeting, that'd
Yeah, and I didn't guarantee it was gonna be the next meeting, I
Okay.
just said if it's a late one, I think that's a nice discussion to have, but I'll look to one of that.
Great, thank you.
All right, so if we're not having the 26th, I would actually like to hear the students' opinion on this too, so maybe there's a way. Either, I know we're not appointing student board members until October, but I don't know, maybe the National Honor Society or someone to chew on this a little bit and see what they think about it.
Sure. Is there a need for a second executive session?
No.
All right, so I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn the meeting?
Is there a second?
Second.
Congratulations, Mark. Congratulations. Any comment or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 6-0 at 9:21.